Hello and welcome to my channel. Vice Rhino here with Godless Engineer, John. Hey, John.
What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? How you doing there, Vice?
Oh, doing good, doing good. Oh, I forgot my light again. I keep doing that. I have this fancy light. Somebody bought this for me, and it's amazing, and I love it. It's the Elgato key light. They're way too expensive for me to buy on my own because it's just a light. But I got to use it because somebody got it for me, and I really appreciate that. But
yeah, those key lights are like great for illuminating you, but not too hard. Generally, I've just got some regular the box lights, so my setup's not all that great.
Oh, my setup's terrible. You see this mess behind me? I'm not even talking about I'm talking about the literal mess of my desk. That's I have to stream from the standing position of my standing desk because there's too much crap behind me if I sit.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's one of the good things about being a fat ass, because like everything behind me is pretty much covered up. Like everything that I wouldn't want people to see is covered up.
So I just gotta stand like this. That's just my glasses cleaning cloth. That's okay. That can be on my desk, right? That's allowed.
Yeah.
Anyway, how's everybody doing? Yeah, some of you are pointing out that the thumbnail says 24. I did fix it. YouTube takes forever to update the thing. John mentioned that to me while we were doing the countdown. I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? I made the new thumbnail. I just forgot to upload it because I'm a professional. But yeah, so anyway, we got some banger tweets for you tonight. There's some spicy boys in here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I've been looking through them, and ooh, boy,
there are things that I know you and I are going to disagree on some of the stuff we're going to talk about, but I think we can both agree that the people tweeting these things are twits.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's jump right in. I need you to read this. This is the Cletus one. It's the first one up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bit of housekeeping. I figured out how to make OBS show them in alphabetical order. So now I get them in the same order as you do, John. It's not a surprise this week.
Oh, okay.
Because it turns out, and for anyone that might be having that issue themselves, because I know all of you are like streamers that do image slideshows all the time, so this is going to be super helpful for the entire audience. But apparently OBS, for whatever reason, it does that when you select the directory instead of just selecting all the images individually. I don't know why. Nobody knows why. It's just a thing that happens. So yeah, instead of just having the directory set and dropping my images in every week, I have to manually input them. But whatever, it takes 2 seconds, so who cares? Oh, someone's asking me if I'm on the autism spectrum. I don't think so. I've never been evaluated. I've seen like a lot of those tweets that are like the neurodivergent urge to this or the ADHD urge to that. Like I know ADHD isn't autism, but like I've been finding that I relate really hard to a lot of those tweets. So I'm actually thinking about, oh, Kitty's here. Hi, Kitty. I'm actually thinking about seeing a doctor about that. But anyway, let's get into the tweets. So first one, I need Brocephus to read this one because it's Cletus.
You need
it's
Brocephus?
Cletus. How could we not have Brocephus reading a Cletus tweet?
Okay. Stiffer, you dumbass lesbian. Physics are facts. Facts and data prove a woman are happier when they stay at home, cook and raise children as the world has worked for thousands of years. Physics say you can't reinvent humanity.
So this delightful person responded. This was responding to a Cara Santa Maria tweet. You can see her name is tagged in there. Cara Santa Maria is awesome. If you are unfamiliar with her, she's one of the co-hosts of the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. She's a regular guest on the God Awful Movies podcast. She has a TV show in Los Angeles doing something or other, science communicating. She has a podcast called Talk Nerdy where she She interviews scientists and stuff. There's a whole episode on books made that are bound with human skin. That's a fun episode. Um, but anyway, so on Twitter, basically all she does on Twitter is just post neat science stuff. This guy responded to she tweeted about like some new advance in artificial intelligence that has to do with like they discovered a new physics property or something. I forget exactly what it was. But she mentioned physics, and with regards to artificial intelligence, nothing else. That was it. It was just a neat science thing. And that prompted this asshole to call her a dumbass lesbian who needs to stay at home, cook, and raise children.
Well, okay, so yeah, that's how you read it. But how I read it is that he thinks that women are happier when they stay home and then cook and raise children. So, like, I don't know. I read that as apparently the women cook children and also raise children. It must be an atheist household.
They raise the children to cook them. It's like a gingerbread house scenario going on.
Yeah, I got KC saying that you need the Oxford comma because that just destroys the sentence. This is one of those situations, one of those many situations where the Oxford comma would definitely help. I'm reading a book right now where he was quoting an article, and he actually in the quotation, you know how when you're like changing the quotation you put it in the square brackets, he put an Oxford comma in the square brackets. It just spoke to my heart. Yeah.
That was actually a scenario where it wouldn't have made much of a difference either way, so he was just being pedantic, but I liked it. I got a kick out of
it. You know, honestly, seeing somebody named Cletus on Twitter like shit talk somebody for, you know, presenting some kind of cool physics fact or something, I just have to laugh at it. Like, there's no way they can expect to be taken serious.
No,
at all.
I wouldn't have even seen this. Like, Kara actually retweeted him being like, "Oh, what a delightful person," or something, like just something innocuous like that. So next up, we've got my boy Frank, Dr. Frank Turek, who I've said this a few times, but it bears repeating because it just boggles my mind. I spent years just kind of avoiding doing anything with regards to Frank Turek because he was always talked up as like the best of apologists. And it was like, okay, well, that sounds like it's going to take a lot of effort to respond to one of his videos because I'm going to have to do like deep dives on everything. It's just going to be a lot of work. So so I just kept on putting it off. And then when I finally got around to it, it was like, this man's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is
I could just imagine you firing up the first video and it's immediately him being like, from the goo to the zoo to you. And it's like, what the fuck was I afraid of?
Yeah. Well, what's really funny though is like there was one person who was in my comment section all the time just ragging on me for picking the bottom of the barrel apologists, and he was like, "Well, why don't you do the good ones like Frank Turek?" And every video he was telling me, stop picking on the low hanging fruit. Do Frank Turek sometime. When I finally did Frank Turek, he was like, "Oh, well, you know, Frank Turek is a doctor and you're not a doctor, so he's obviously smarter than you." I was like, okay, so you go from complaining about who I'm responding to, and then when I finally respond to the guy you actually said to respond to, you switch to the genetic fallacy and just be like, oh, well, credentials. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? We were talking about biology. I am equally qualified as Frank when it comes to biology, because his doctorate is in, what is it, divinity or something? PhD of apologetics or something?
Mm-hmm.
Something religiously that like you can tell if you have a rudimentary understanding of biology that he does not. Anyway, to the tweet, there's every motive to say that Jesus wasn't God, that he was just another teacher and didn't rise from the dead, but that's not what the New Testament writers went to their deaths saying. Why? Because it did happen.
That's a bit of a leap there. Just so that everybody knows, Turek has a master of public administration. It just reminds me of what is she who shall not be named have a degree in public.
Oh, is that the HR lady?
HR lady. Yeah, human relations, right?
Yeah.
Human resources.
I like
So
that.
that's what that.
She who shall not be named. That's good. Should
And
I
then
name her? Because I feel like some of my audience will get that and others won't.
Oh, I mean, if you want to, I couldn't think of her actual name. I just remember hers.
You know what? I always forget that she exists until somebody brings her up and is like, oh, why did you remind? It's S.J. Thomason. She's not very good.
Yeah. But he also has a doctor of ministry and apologetics from the Southern Evangelical Seminary.
Yeah. So
yes, not a real school, honey.
I thought I was always under the impression that he was actually a legit doctor. That's not an accredited school?
Well, I don't know. It's a seminary. So, I mean, it probably is accredited, like far as theology goes.
Does accreditation, whatever that word is, does that even matter when it comes to religious stuff? Like, I mean, specifically, like if you're getting a doctorate in apologetics, does that matter? Like, obviously there's religious stuff where it does, like Bart Ehrman, Richard Carrier, those guys have legitimate credentials in biblical religious stuff.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Bart
Ehrman got his degrees from a seminary school too, so I don't know.
Yeah, but no, it was what was the school?
Princeton Seminary.
Was it Princeton? Yeah, so it's a legit one. It wasn't like Patriot University.
Right. It was not Patriot University. There's a big difference between unaccredited and accredited. I'm not sure about the Southern Evangelical Seminary, but it just seems like it's like a mill for, apologists, just like Frank Turek.
Casey in the chat says no, but accreditation matters when you call yourself a doctor. Yeah. Would Ben Shapiro call Frank Turek a doctor?
I don't know. She doesn't care about anything that Ben Shapiro says.
No, but you remember it was ages ago when all the conservatives were ragging on Jill Biden for not being a real doctor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So according to that metric, Frank Turek isn't a real doctor. Anyway, so my main thing here is like, I know you and I take a different position. Like, do you think the disciples existed? I know you're a mythicist when it comes to Jesus, but like the disciples, because somebody had to start the religion, right? Like, obviously they wouldn't have counted as disciples if Jesus didn't exist.
So it's a very good question, because I think most of the disciples are made up. But also I think that I don't think that anybody was ever labeled a disciple, mainly because Paul doesn't say that anybody was a disciple. Paul labels like Peter and then James the Pillar as apostles, and we know that there were other apostles at the time, but apostle just means that you got a vision of Jesus. I mean, if it meant anything more than that, then Paul wouldn't be considered an apostle. Well, and Paul says that he's exactly the same as the others.
I think both apostle and disciple mean different things depending on what the person speaking needs them to mean at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, I generally go with apostle, meaning that you received a vision of Jesus and you're spreading like directly received like a vision of Jesus and you're spreading his word, and everything like that. So
let's confine this to the ones that you would agree exist. So they went to their deaths saying that it was true. We don't we don't know how they died, any of them,
right?
Except maybe James. And even that, it's Paul, very vague.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's commonly said that both Paul and Peter were martyred, but I know Apologia, he has a lot of great content on this very question. And you can't really say for sure even when Paul died, because there's conflicting accounts of that, let alone whether or not it was for believing. And we don't know if he's given a chance to repent or anything.
Yeah, like that's kind of the thing that makes it a martyr, is if you had, like, if you were given the choice, okay, you recant your beliefs, publicly denounce them, and then you can live. And even in the accounts, like, even if we take the church traditions at face value, I don't think I haven't read all of them, but the ones I have read, they don't have that detail. So so even if we take them just at face value, there's no record of them getting the chance to survive if they change their minds. So it could be like it's a situation where like in the first century, Christianity was not specifically persecuted empire-wide. There were local instances, there were local flare-ups. Nero did that thing in Rome, but it wasn't a empire-wide thing. Like if you were living in Judea, you could reasonably expect to convert to Christianity and then live out the rest of your life as normal.
Yeah, pretty much.
So there's nothing to say that they didn't just somehow get in over their heads, not expecting it to lead to their deaths, and it just did. So that would be like saying that like every time I get in my car and drive somewhere, there's a risk that I will get into a fatal accident. But I don't expect that I will get into a fatal accident. So this argument would be like saying that if I, when I get into my car to drive to the store to buy myself a bag of chips, that means I'm willing to lay down my life for that bag of chips because I know there's a risk there.
Right.
But I'm not.
Well, also, I feel like Frank's tweet kind of brushes upon the whole they wouldn't die for a lie thing. I mean, even if the disciples, all of them existed and they all lied about it, they still could have, quote unquote, died for a lie. Like, I think that's probably one of the weakest arguments for a resurrection that you could possibly get.
Yeah, well, that's one of those ones where, like, if you believe that people wouldn't die for something that they know is false, then why aren't you a Mormon?
Exactly.
The argument there will be like, oh, well, he wasn't given the option to stay alive if he recanted his Mormonism. Neither were these guys.
Yeah.
At least not that we have reference. So, yeah, you missed it because you can't see me, but I was cradling the cat for a bit, and everybody's telling me to bring the cat back. I actually, the cat hates being held. She tolerates it because she really likes the neck scritches. So if you're holding her, you have to be giving her neck scritches the whole time. But yeah, she doesn't stay for very long ever. Right now, she's hungry right now. And she's been doing this weird thing recently where she has plenty of food. I mean, it's a cat thing. It's not a weird thing. It's a cat thing. But like she never used to do this, but now she's all over me, acting like she's hungry, and then she like trots out with me when I go to check on her food, and it's like, no, you have lots of food here. I have to shake it for her to show her that it's there. Anyway, next up we've got George fully vaccinated Jackson. Before we get into this, credit where it's due.
Money for candy.
Credit where it's due. George is fully vaccinated, so. Well done, George.
So I have to ask, what was the tweet that you would put out that provoked this?
So this is kind of a public service announcement. So everybody's been posting their Wordle scores on Twitter. And it's kind of a nuisance, but whatever. Who cares? Just like sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes you get funny patterns or whatever. And I get the appeal of sharing them. But for people that rely on text-to-speech services to read their social media feeds to them, it's incredibly it's more than annoying. It's actually, it gets in the way of everything else because it reads through, and like if you failed the Wordle, you got 6 lines of 5 boxes each, and it's like black square, yellow square, green square, black square, black square, black square, and it takes forever, and it's just so frustrating to them. And so I posted a thing where it's like, okay, well, if you want to share your Wordle score, here's how you do it. You paste it in like you normally would, and then you take a screenshot of it, and instead of posting the text, you share the screenshot. So then and you can put in alt text for it if you want as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable.
Yeah. And so this guy was like, his response to me saying that is, wow, so if I post a picture of the hike I took, I'm discriminating against someone in a wheelchair? This has reached Monty Python levels of surrealism. It's like, that's not what this is about at all. Not even close.
Yeah, that's not even comparable.
No, like, and well, he later on he clarified. He was like, oh well, if you like, he was accusing me of not having read the article. Who's like, oh, really? Have you read the article? Because it tells you there's like 6 steps that you have to do to make it accessible to them. And it's like, okay, well, it's first off, you don't have to put in the alt text because that was like 4 out of the 6 steps. You could just post a screenshot. The alt text is just an extra layer of accessibility. And then secondly, it's a fucking word game score. If it bothers you that much, you could just not post it. Like, nobody is going to complain if you suddenly stop posting your Wordle score.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't seem that much more cumbersome than like, I don't know if you remember back when people were doing like they would put 4 pictures, but they would arrange them so that it's like it makes a sort of like a larger picture, and they always had funny things. Like, I don't know, it just seems like it's no more cumbersome. It's actually less cumbersome than like doing some tricky shit like that.
Yeah, that's extra hard because you have to think of how it's going to look on desktop versus mobile versus maybe a tablet will see it differently. Piao Meow Noir sent $5, says, thank you, Vice Rhino, for showing me the logical side of atheism and out of belief system that damns those who think for once. You are truly an epic genius. Oh, thank you, but I'm not a genius. I took a Facebook IQ test once that said I was a genius, but I press X to doubt.
Press X to doubt, yeah. I don't know, Vice. You are a pretty smart dude over there.
I like to think so, but I'm smart in that I know what I don't know, so I know when to shut up sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes I've actually often said, if I ever say anything that's going to get me canceled, it's going to be on a live stream, because that's when I'm speaking without, like, all my videos are scripted. And so many times I have to go back and change something. It's like, oh, I could have worded that better. Maybe I shouldn't say that. There's some stuff that got cut out of my scripts that is just like, no, I don't need to say that in public.
not in public.
Most of that stuff I don't say in private. It's just you want to be edgy a little bit, but at the same time not be problematic. It's a fine line to walk sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, now we got to John Revelinski. Okay, this was fun. So, as some of you may be aware, I watched the Atlas Shrugged trilogy over the last couple weeks. I had to take like a week-long break in between parts 2 and 3. But, yeah, and they're just terrible. They are just garbage. Like, like the villain, in order to make the protagonists of those movies look like they're actually protagonists and not comical bad guys, because their behavior is cartoonishly villainous. So in order to make these cartoon villains look like the good guys in the movies, they have to go extra cartoon villain for the actual villains. And it ends up being just completely ridiculous in a way that I absolutely loved. Now, I love bad movies and stuff like that, so if that's not your thing, do not watch these movies. They are bad. They are very bad. And so I posted about this and how bad they are, and this guy's response was be like, oh, well, first you criticize a writer you've never read, because I haven't read the book. I haven't read any Ayn Rand writings, but I never claimed to have read the book, and my criticism was against the movie, not against her book. Although that being said, everyone that had read the book that read my assessment of the movie agreed that that's about the same as applies to the book. They were pretty faithful to the book for the movie. But anyway, so first I criticized a writer I've never read. Then I criticized a movie she didn't write, and then quoted anonymous sources to buttress your argument. So the anonymous sources were the other people that were on this Twitter thread saying that I've read the book and it's just as bad as the movie. It's like, and also like, that's my opinion, man. My opinion is this movie was garbage. I don't need sources for that. That's my fucking opinion.
You are the source.
Yeah. Like this is the one time when source, dude, trust me, is actually a good source, when it's my own opinion. But and what's really funny, let's see, I think so I went to this guy's profile. He lists himself as Mr. Logic, Reason, MAGA, Objectivist, so that's the Ayn Rand thing. I could teach a graduate level course on Ayn Rand's writings, philosophy, and personal life. Majors equal math, chemistry, and pharmacy. So he's such an Ayn Rand fan that he thinks he could teach a graduate level course on her. Does he remember the part where she took Social Security in her old age?
Probably not. But also, I mean, like I could teach a graduate level on this person. First of all, he doesn't have any majors that would allow him to do that, which maybe this is nitpicking, but he doesn't have any majors that would allow him to do that. And I don't see anywhere where he's actually got any kind of like actual degree, because you got to have at least a doctorate, I think, to teach at a graduate level course, and he'd have to have a doctorate in literature.
I was gonna say, is it possible to get a PhD in Ayn Rand? What a waste.
I mean, it would have to be.
That would be almost worse than getting a PhD in apologetics.
I mean, it would have to be like a literature or some kind of like course or major like that, I would think, and then you could do a hyper specific Ayn Rand thing. But I mean, the point of fact is he's got to have a doctorate first, and he's not going into anything that seems to be related to that.
Yeah, it's just so funny too. And the icing on the cake here is that he blocked me for not liking Ayn Rand. It's like, okay, buddy, okay. You know what? I block people too. That's fair. But like, you come in expecting me to have sources for my opinion. Oh, this one's fun. Okay, so I split this up into two pictures because there's a secret with this one.
Yeah.
So it starts off, it's a meme. It's like this big burly guy smoking a cigar, leaning up against a manly pickup truck. Says
with uncomfortably large nipples, I have to say.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, those are some Joe Rogan nipples right there. Yes, I do know what Joe Rogan's nipples look like. I wish I didn't. So it says, aren't you afraid of COVID-19? Let me put it this way. I survived clackers, metal lawn darts, riding in the back of a pickup, drinking from a hose. That's a typo. And at one time being married to Satan's sister. No, I'm good. So this is basically, I'm a man's man. Okay. First up, main problem with this meme, it's survivorship bias. Like, you're here to tell us that you survived riding in the back of a pickup truck because you're not one of the many people who fell out of a pickup truck and died.
Well, yeah. I like how, and this is just in general with this particular crowd of people, I like how they think they're impervious to basic like contagious diseases. I mean, it's like being macho against the polio virus or something like that. It's like,
it doesn't care that you survived the lawn darts. It'll take you out. No, it'll fuck you up. But okay, this is the icing on the cake. So the man that this is a picture of, he found this meme and he decided to comment on it. So that's the next picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mr. Christopher Weston. He says, I don't even know what this memes. Apparently some right-wing group chose my image to make a nonsensical misspelled meme for not wearing masks. Little do they know they chose a very gay porn star that's into some kinky shit as their poster boy.
That explains a lot about the shirtless thing in front of a pickup truck with his hard ass nipples. Like, it makes sense now.
The leather, what are they? Suspenders, the leather suspenders.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just perfect. It's so perfect. I love this. Anyway. Okay. Next up, we're on to Rob Robinson. This guy's fun. This is the title of the video. I've got a few screenshots from him. So it says, remember when the writers of the four gospels were writing about Jesus, not them, I put a when in there that's not there. Remember, the writers of the Gospels were writing about Jesus, not themselves. They say they saw and heard Jesus. They record his... Okay, which Gospel says they saw and, like, the person writing saw and heard Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, it's spoken from a third-person perspective.
Yeah.
So, like, all of the Gospels. So
all of the Gospels say that people saw and heard Jesus, but, like, any book of fiction says that about their main character. They record his miracles, proving his claim to be God. Recording miracles does not prove a claim to be God.
Well, also there's substantial scholarly support that shows that the miracles of Jesus that appears in the Gospels are actually all derived from Old Testament miracles.
Well, which makes sense because they were trying to portray Jesus as like the next Moses.
Right.
'Cause there's that whole the whole
exactly.
birth narrative with the killing of the children and all that shit.
Yeah, especially Matthew's a very new Moses kind of person,
Yeah, but
or
also
kind of gospel.
So one of my favorite things is now there's that loony fringe that I don't like. You're not a part of this one, I hope. But it's the guys that think that Jesus was invented by the Roman Empire to control the Jews.
Oh, for fuck's sake, no! I am definitely not.
Okay, I didn't think
I'm
so.
not that far gone. That's incredibly bad historiography, even for.
I watched like one video on that and I was like, that's interesting and it's fun to think about, but no, that's not how the world works. But anyway, that's one of the things is I always bring up with regards to like, oh, Jesus miracles are testified in the Bible or whatever. I always bring up Vespasian's miracles because we know about them through Tacitus interviewing an eyewitness of the miracle, like someone who actually was there and like he's actually making the claim, like, I talked to this person who is there and he actually put it right down in writing. This person had no reason to lie about it. And so that's much better attestation for the miracles of Vespasian, which he healed a guy's hand and he healed a blind guy. And this is where the Romans invented Jesus to control the Jews thing comes in, is that Vespasian healed the blind guy by essentially spitting in his eyes, just kind of like Jesus spitting in the mud and rubbing it on his eyes.
Yeah.
And so they saw the parallel and were like, oh, well, yeah, that miracle supposedly took place around the same time as Jesus was, or no, it was around 70 AD. So it was around the time the Gospels were being written is when that supposedly happened. So they put those together and were like, the Romans invented Jesus.
You see how I would take that is just that miracle workers or like the miracle people that were going around, like that was a common thing that they did was spit in people's eye and rub dirt in them.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's like faith healer. You go see Benny Hinn, or you go see, what's another faith healer guy? Peter Popoff. You go see you're likely to see them like push someone over on the stage. Mm-hmm. That's just how it's done.
With Benny
Oh,
Hinn,
he does the twirling his coat and whipping people with his coat. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, they all tell us the same story, but from their own unique perspective. Their own unique perspective being mutually exclusive from each other, including or excluding unique facts. So like. And there are some things that is like, yeah, that could be just a perspective thing, and it's kind of an argument from silence to say, like the guard at the tomb, like, yeah, it's possible they were there in John, Luke, and Mark, but Matthew was the only one to mention them. But that's a weird detail to leave out.
Yeah,
but then then there's other things like, and they saw one man in the tomb, or they saw two men in the tomb, or they saw one man and just shining light or something, or like Matthew has, like the stone is there when they get there and the angel comes down and rolls it away for them, whereas the other ones it's already rolled away when they get there. Yeah it's
or there's what was Jesus's last word on the cross? Like that's an interesting one to try to answer too.
Yeah, that one, I agree that is a contradiction, but I also see that there is the harmonization for that one is not as ridiculous as a lot of the harmonizations are, because there is the one of them that says, oh, he cried out in a loud voice or whatever, and you could say like, oh, him crying out, it doesn't say what he said when he cried out, so he cried out the things that he said in all the other books. And yeah, that doesn't really, like, that's not the most, that's not the reading that would work with the principle of Occam's razor, but that's not as out there as Judas hanging himself from a tree and then his body gets all bloated up and then the branch breaks and he falls down and blows up.
Yeah.
So including, so then second tweet follow up to that is, these statements were written as historical facts, not myth, allegory, or a novel. Like,
that's not true.
Press X to doubt.
Yeah.
Well, the gospel, like the authors of the Gospels basically invented the genre of gospel. And because it was a brand new genre that had never been done before, we can't really know what exactly their intention was with their writing.
Well, so true, but it definitely, like, it definitely fits the definition of like legendary accretion as far as like the entire story of all the gospels. Were they written as historical facts? I really doubt that, just because like if it was written as historical facts, they would have done the same thing that other historians in the first century did, and that was discuss sources and why those were the best sources. The only source that's ever cited is the scripture. So I mean, there's literally...
We're getting there.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so yeah, I would say that they were probably just writing down the oral, like they were just recording the oral stories that were passed around as they knew them. And they did change things here and there to fit their specific intended use for the stories. But anyway, so they're not myth, fact, or allegory or novel. They come to us by 24,593 manuscript copies, identical to our modern New Testament. Identical is not the right word to be using there.
No, really not.
Just read the footnotes in your Bible, buddy. Like, it's got all sorts of spots where they point out where they're definitely not identical.
Right. Yeah. So the most famous one is the ending of Mark, I would think. Another good point is the
lady caught in adultery.
Yes, the lady caught in adultery in John. That was added later.
The only explicit mention of the Trinity in the Bible was a later addition, and that one was actually so blatant that it's not in most translations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot, and then of course there's the one, I'm sure you're familiar with this one, the scribe that got chastised in the margin for changing the text.
Which
I think it's in the book of Hebrews.
Okay.
Fool and knave, do not alter the text or whatever. I forget exactly what the quote is.
Okay, I'm not sure. There's so many
you
different
don't know
ones.
that one?
So, no.
It's in the Codex Vaticanus, Hebrews 1:3.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it reads, where are we? Fool and knave, leave... Oh, fuck. I hate those websites that they load, and then a few seconds later they get the pop-up asking for your email address. Like, no, I'm not fucking giving you my email address. No, go away. Anyway, fool and knave, leave the old reading alone and do not change it. It's like... on one of the manuscripts, it's got in the margin, don't change the manuscript. And also, like, all the spots where in the Bible where it says like, do not add or take away from this book, anyone who does, all the curses in this book will be leveled on them. If you look at the historical context, that was actually a fairly common practice in writing at the time, because scribes were so notoriously bad at copying things correctly that they would, like, the authors would try to scare the scribes into doing a better job. I mean, like, if you mess this up, you are getting all the curses in this book on you, so don't mess it up. So those admonitions only apply to that book, and they only apply to the scribes who are copying that book.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way modern Christians like to interpret those.
No, definitely not.
Anyway, where were we? Okay, yeah. So they were written by 44 AD as eyewitnesses, stating this 134 times.
They
stated that they were eyewitnesses 134 times in these books that were written in the Gospels that were written before 44 AD.
Well, so I read it a different way, and I obviously read it wrong, because I thought that, like, the stating this 134 times is them stating that they wrote it by 44 AD 134 times.
No, we'll get into that. Remember 134. That's an important number for this
right.
guy.
Okay. Well, they definitely didn't write by 44 AD. I mean, not even Paul dates earlier than, like, the mid 50s. So he's just wrong about this.
Yeah, and then their testimony bears no mark of deceit. I'd argue that Matthew building apologetics into his account of the empty tomb, like putting the Roman guard there to counter the idea that the disciples stole the body, I'd say that is a mark of deceit. Like, he's obviously trying to figure, like, people are clearly saying, well, the disciples clearly just stole the body and made up the thing about the resurrection. That's why they couldn't find the body, right? So him putting in the guard there is like, no, they couldn't have stolen the body because there was a guard there. And there's some debate over whether it's a Roman guard or a temple guard. It doesn't really matter because it wasn't there.
I've heard
the video that I've got coming out on Friday. I just to spoil a little bit of it for you guys. One of the arguments that the guy makes is that the reason we know that the tomb was empty is because the early Christians lost track of where the tomb was. Because if Jesus' body was in the tomb, they would have kept track of it because it would have been important. But because he was raised from the dead, it wasn't important where he was, and that's why they didn't keep track of it. That's also why there aren't entire industries of tourism based around people going to see Jesus' tomb today, because Jesus is risen.
I mean, there is a tomb that people visit, but
there's
I doubt
3 of them in
Jesus's.
Jerusalem. There's another one in Japan and another one in India.
Oh.
So there's 5 tombs altogether. Only 3 are in Jerusalem.
Okay.
And none of which have any good claim to it. Okay, next from Rob Robinson, we've got 2 facts. So remember earlier when he said they wrote in the Gospels and the other New Testament books by 134 times that they were eyewitnesses? Well, now we have 2 facts. I have 134 contemporaneous non-biblical citations for Jesus, his crucifixion and resurrection from secular sources. It's interesting that the number of secular sources just happens to be identical to the number of times the biblical authors called themselves eyewitnesses.
Yeah, it seems a little weird because he's either contradicting himself
there.
or he's just pulling something else out of his ass.
Yeah, it made me laugh when I learned this about this guy. This is like, pick a lane, buddy. Like, call them the biblical authors calling themselves eyewitnesses, or call them secular sources. Either way, I'm tempted to say, tell me what your sources are. The answer to that question is, buy my book. And I don't wanna. And the New Testament has been certified as a reliable, truthful, and accurate historical narrative of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Who certified it?
Yeah.
What organization is giving out certifications for being truthful and accurate historical narratives?
I mean, just no organizations. It's just apologists out there that say, "Oh, this is reliable," but it's not reliable. I mean, in several ways, we know it's not reliable. So.
Oh, I see someone in the chat talking about Donald Duck, so I have to bring this up. I just learned this today. So my kids are watching through DuckTales, and I'm watching through it with them because it's a nice bit of nostalgia for me, and it's a good show, and David Tennant voices Scrooge, so why not? We actually started watching it a couple years ago when the organization 1 Million Moms made a big stink about the fact that there's a gay couple in it. Now, the gay couple, it's a blink and you'll miss it moment. They're on screen for maybe 5 seconds total in the episode, and it's just like 2 guys that one of them is I'm with, they're both wearing shirts to say I'm with dad, and the arrows are pointing at each other, and it's cute. It's a cute little moment. So anyway, we got to an episode today where they meet some hippie mermaids, and I was making jokes on Twitter about how these mermaids are hippies, so they need to make a joke somewhere about them enjoying seaweed too much or something. They didn't take that low-hanging fruit, and I can kind of understand why. That probably would have put up a stink with some parents or whatever, but okay, who cares? But they get to a point where everybody's making their own mermaid flipper things for themselves, and then it cuts to Donald Duck after he's finished his, and he's reclining in his that is clearly a trans flag. It's the trans flag. There's no way around it, and
right.
And so I looked it up. I Googled it. Did they do that on purpose? Was that just a color scheme that they liked? It's so close that it's I'll bet that's on purpose. So I looked it up. Donald Duck, trans flag, whatever. And it turns out the writers of the show actually confirmed that Donald Duck is trans. Because I guess they mentioned in an earlier season that he hatched from the same egg as his twin sister. And if they're in the same egg, that means they're identical twins, which means that if they're brother and sister, one of them has to be trans, because that's how identical twins work. And apparently he's also been seen laying eggs on occasion. and now
Oh,
he just
interesting.
shows up in a mermaid flipper with the trans flag on it. It's like, so it's actually official canon that Donald Duck is trans.
That's crazy. I mean, all right, but
And I'm just shocked that 1 Million Moms made, because this is the same season as the gay couple. They make a big deal about the gay couple, but they don't make a big deal about trans Donald Duck. Like,
No.
Donald Duck is a beloved childhood character that they're ruining. Whereas these other two guys, we don't even know what their names are.
yeah, I don't know. I never thought about. I don't know that much about Donald Duck, so I didn't know
Neither
that
did
he
I
ever
till
laid an
today.
egg. But I mean, with the general public, at least in my childhood, thinks that bunnies lay eggs. So I wouldn't expect them to
Fair
think
enough.
too hard about that one.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things that actually kind of makes me a little bit angry, because they're like throwing little tidbits to the LGBTQ community, but it's nothing like they haven't come out and said on the show that Donald Duck is trans. They've just dropped hints at it, and they've confirmed it outside the show that, like, where the kids can't see it, that it is canonical. So like,
Right.
so they've got the plausible deniability thing where, like, so they can still show it in China or whatever, where they like to censor that sort of shit. And it's kind of slimy that they walk the line the way they do. But at least it's getting to a point where they're experiencing enough pressure to include LGBTQ characters that they're at least trying to make it look like they're doing it. So it's progress, slower progress than we could hope for, but better than nothing.
Yeah.
And then, so this is from his website, the next one. This is that same Rob Robinson guy with his 134 contemporaneous non-biblical citations. Earlier, it was 134 people saying that they were eyewitnesses in the Bible. And now it's 134 citations in the New Testament, where the writers state that they saw Jesus and witnessed his miracles, death, and resurrection. Now,
Oh, okay.
I want to know where those verses are, but, like, it's always the same number. It's always 134. Now, to be fair, when he was talking about the secular ones on Twitter, that might have been a typo. He might have just been used to typing 134, because later on in this one, he says that there's 121 secular citations, which that's still wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, well, no, 121 citations where Jesus and his followers are mentioned by non-biblical sources. I could maybe see that. That seems inflated. I'm aware of like 12, but
Yeah.
like just having mentioned them. Also, this is where I would wonder what he counts as contemporaneous, because I remember a little while ago I was responding to Alan Parr, Alan Parr, the Beat by Alan Parr, and he was talking about historians who recorded the life of Jesus, and like there's secular historians and atheist historians who agree that Jesus resurrected. And we're like, what? Atheists? And then he named them, and one of them wrote a book about it. And this guy that he was calling an atheist historian, he was an Anglican minister, and he wrote a book about it in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's not contemporary. I mean, that's like close to contemporary to us.
Well, also, a lot of times these people don't understand what independent sources, not just contemporaneous, but independent. So, like, one good independent source you could say is Paul. But I mean, even then, he was getting his information from previous Christians.
He's independent from the Gospels,
right? And but after the Gospel of Mark, pretty much everything is tainted with the Gospels in some way or another. So that's why, like, you got to find somebody that's like prior to the Gospels that mentions Jesus, and that's the hard thing, at least for me.
Well, you could argue that John is kind of independent from the other three Gospels. It's not really.
No. There's substantial like support for John having all three of the other Gospels.
Oh no, I have no doubt that he had access to them.
Okay.
But like, in my opinion, he actually goes out of his way to directly contradict the synoptics on a number of occasions.
Well, yeah, like a good example of that is Lazarus, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he was refuting what they said. But I mean, that just goes to show that,
That
he
he had
had those gospels, and so that makes him not independent. And plus, in my view, he of course wrote in like the 2nd century, so there's like nearly no way that he could have any kind of like independent information from everything else.
Whenever I'm arguing these things, I always just assume the earliest dates, because the earliest dates are still ridiculously late.
Right. I mean, the earliest date for John, I believe, is like early 90s. But I mean,
that's pushing it. I've usually seen like 110.
Oh, really?
I think so. Maybe I might be misremembering.
No. I mean, I'm fine with the 110 date, but I've heard apologists say that John was written in the 90s.
Well, I mean, we just read an apologist say that it was written before 44.
Well, yeah, true.
What apologists say doesn't mean squat.
Right.
But anyway, I just thought I thought that was fascinating. Oh, we're on to case orbs. So this is him being almost pretty much explicitly racist. Like, it doesn't get more explicit of a dog whistle than this. Is it just me, or have you also noticed that TV commercials in the last 2 years have had some major casting changes? What do you suppose he means by casting changes? What do you think he means? No, I mean, like, who the fuck watches TV commercials anymore? It's YouTube commercials now.
Yeah.
But
apparently, Paul is watching. Shannon just let us know that Paul yelled no and then said 95.
95 what?
I guess John.
Oh, 95? Okay, so yeah. Okay, I'll take the correction, Paul. Thank you. Hey, I was right, though. It was later than 90.
Yeah, it was.
Not by much. You had it closer than I did.
But, I mean, I wonder, because one thing I did notice, I've noticed this for like the past, what is it, like maybe 6 or 7 years, there have actually been a lot more like big name celebrities in commercials. So I don't know if that's what he's talking about.
That's not what he's talking about. This is Kevin Sorbo we're talking about here. That is not what he's talking about. He's talking about not white people, or not straight people, or not cis people, or all of the above.
Well, did you hear he recently complained that apparently he has 30 movie scripts ready, but nobody wants to fund a conservative?
Oh my God, I saw that. Like, I saw that. I'm like, dude, I just watched 3 parts of Atlas Shrugged. The movie the first one didn't make a penny. It cost them $20 million to make, and they made like $10 million at the box office. It's like they didn't even make their money back, and they still got parts 2 and 3 remade, even though not a single actor signed on for more than one movie. Like, to the point where they ended the second movie with John Galt still in the shadows, not showing his face, because they knew they weren't going to be able to get that actor back to play him again. Like, and it's like, it doesn't get much more conservative than Atlas Shrugged. But somehow they made 3 movies of that didn't turn a profit. But he can't get his 30 scripts done? Is it maybe because your 30 scripts are shit?
I agree with KC. That's exactly the reason why.
But
his scripts are shit.
Well, I don't know. Do you ever watch these bad Christian movies?
Sometimes there are some that I've watched.
Did you see Revelation Road?
I have not seen Revelation Road, but
I think it's a David A.R. White movie. Kevin Sorbo is in it, and he plays like this ridiculous crime boss type guy in this post-apocalyptic world. He's like running the fighting ring or whatever. And for like the first half of the movie, he's trying to do an accent, but you can't figure out what the accent is. And he just keeps slipping around in it. He's not consistent with it at all. He just sucks at the accent completely. Then halfway through the movie, he takes one of the main characters aside, and he just starts talking in his normal voice. And then they had to write in a line for him to say, where he's like, "Oh, are you wondering why I'm not speaking in my accent anymore? It's because I put that on as a show because it makes me more intimidating to." And then the rest of the movie just doesn't have an accent anymore. So they actually had they gave up on trying to get him to do an accent, but they'd already shot so much footage of it that they couldn't just switch it without an explanation.
Yeah.
It was
What is
amazing.
that called again? Revelation Road?
Revelation Road. I think it's a series, and I'm not sure which one he shows up in, but I remember seeing them. Oh yeah, people are asking if we've seen the Reliant. I've seen the commercials for the Reliant. I kind of want to see that one, but that one's a bit harder to access, and like I definitely don't want to pay for it. That's his gun fantasy one where they like the gun nuts take over, the government falls, and he like it's that post-apocalyptic prepper fantasy movie. Except from what I've heard, everyone with a gun like dies from gunshot wounds. So it ends up being like, this is actually why being a prepper is a bad thing. But yeah. And I think, oh no, we've got one more. We've got the transformed wife is up next.
Yeah.
I think that's, oh no, we got a couple more still. We still got lots to go. I thought Sorbo was near the end for some reason. Feminism has made women angrier, discontent, lonely, and depressed. The fruit of feminism. That's a different thing. That takes place on Dune. So the fruit of feminism is wretched. Godliness produces women who are kinder, more loving, content, and joyful. Which path do you want to walk on?
I don't know. Whatever path she's going down, I do not want to be on.
Yeah, her life seems like a nightmare.
I mean, I don't see how feminism has made women angrier, discontent, lonely, and depressed. Like, I just don't like.
I can see how you could get that impression, because when women aren't allowed to talk, you might not realize that they're angry about something.
That's a good point.
So they might seem angrier because they're now allowed to express that anger, whereas before they were not. Or like maybe they were technically allowed, but then when nobody was looking, the husband would beat it out of her. So, yeah, so I can see how you could get the impression that feminism has made women angry. But like it's not that it has made, it's not that the causation's reversed there. It's not that feminism has made them angry. It's that it's given them the freedom to express themselves, which sometimes includes anger.
Yeah, and honestly, the godliness produces what the fuck ever. It just sounds like toxicity to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's like, if you shut up and you just follow what God says, mind your husband and cook food in the kitchen, you'll be happy about it. And it's like, not everybody's happy being that way. Yep. Like there are some people that like, that like just staying home and cooking, that not just women, but also,
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I like cooking sometimes. Like one of the things I miss because of the pandemic is like we would usually host Easter dinner at our house, and we'd invite, like, not everybody liked our plan, but like we would just do everything all at once. So like my parents are divorced, so I'd invite my mother and her family and my father and his family on the same day. It's like, okay, you two can just forget your differences for now. Just like sit at opposite ends of the room or something, and we'll just have a big gathering. So we'd have like 25 to 30 people in our house, and I'd be cooking. Like we'd like, me and Mrs. Rhino would like trade off jobs, and I would do the lamb usually. She would do like she had like she does stuff with sweet. Well, she did. Yeah, I guess that's not happening anymore. But like she would do stuff with sweet potatoes that, like, I don't generally like sweet potatoes, but she could make them in a way that was good. So like we each had our own specialty dishes that we would do, and we'd be puttering around the kitchen and yelling at each other to get out of my way because I need to get to the oven now, sort of thing. And it was a big, hectic, fun disaster of a day, and I loved it, and I missed that. And I was so glad it was only once a year, but it was like, you know what I mean? Like something that's fun, but you hate it.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and yeah, it's going to be different now. But anyway, let's move on before I make myself sadder. Okay, Matt Walsh. Oh, this is a fun one.
I hate Matt Walsh.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Just in general.
He's such a smarmy douche. But yeah, this is the one that I'm going to say is going to get my stream demonetized, but for some reason it's going to stay monetized because apparently I can talk about child rape all I want and stay monetized, but as soon as you say fuck, you get
Yeah, I got flagged, like one of my videos where I was not excessively like cursing, it got flagged for extreme profanity, like all of the words you should not ever say. And
yeah, like
it's just ridiculous.
I would really want to have some like I would love some insight into how the YouTube bots figure stuff out. Oh, this one's already limited. How about that?
Yeah,
there we go.
My streams always get immediately like limited to no ads whenever I start them, no matter what. They're like I just don't say anything, immediately limited to no ads.
Yeah, on the first page of all my streams going back, which actually gets all the way back to Twit Tweets number 1, there's only 3 that are limited, including this one. And pretty much every single one I've been like, oh, this one's not getting money.
So typically what gets mine flagged as extreme profanity is I've got that one shirt that says citation fucking needed. And if the auto-generated thumbnails have that on display, it automatically, has it as extreme profanity, which is really insulting because of the words that it lists as violating that. I'm like, I have never said any of those words.
Okay, I just saw Shannon post saying apparently this tweet is fake. I thought I screenshotted that myself. But before we talk about it, let's just... Okay, yeah, it's not up anymore. So let's just go with this as a fake one and skip it. Okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot to read a super chat. We've got a super chat from Vandalia, 1998. A Rhino and an engineer get into a web call together, and I forget how the joke ends, but here's money so you can figure it out. So, yeah, that's the last one, and I guess it's a fake one, so let's not talk about fake tweets then.
Okay. I'm good with that.
All right, so that was fun.
Oh, definitely. I always love talking about like how little evidence there is for the Gospels.
Yeah. Kitty. Meow. She's not happy.
She doesn't sound happy. It sounded like she said, fuck her, feed me. I don't know why she's Southern.
It was a fuck you because I picked her up and she doesn't like it, but there's also a very subtle feed me going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, she likes the neck scritches, so she tolerates it for a second, then she'll jump down eventually.
Yeah.
And here she goes. Oop. She's a really awkward cat. Like, how some cats are like good at landing and like they do it gracefully and it's very quiet and everything. She just thunks right down. And so I can't, like, I grew up with cats that, like, if you were holding them and they wanted to go, you just drop them and they just hop down and go. You can do that with this one, with her. Periwinkle's her name. You can do that with Periwinkle, but then I feel bad for it because it's just this big thunk as she hits the floor, and I feel like I've done something wrong. But like, she'll, like, when she jumps down off of stuff herself, it's the same sound, so she's fine. But yeah, I can't bring myself to do that to her. So Ben Farmer says Matt Walsh creating a shell company to fool trans people, including children, into being in his anti-trans movie is absolutely horrific. Yeah, we can talk about that. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that. I didn't do any kind of follow up on it, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
What's the name of the company? God, because we should probably get that out there somewhere. I know I tweeted about it. You know what? I don't remember, but yeah, dude, if you Matt Walsh trick trans people, see if that brings up anything.
I don't know. Casey just said trophy smash. Oh, apparently not.
Trophy Smash sounds like something else that's going. Gender Unity Project is the name of the organization. So if you are trans and you are contacted by the Gender Unity Project, block those motherfuckers.
Yeah, they're not good people.
Yeah, they are They're going like they're playing themselves off as being trans. They're playing themselves off as being cis people that just want like information. They just want to ask questions of trans people so that they can be more informed, more well informed. And it sounds all good intentioned and everything, but as soon as you do any digging into it, you find out that they're very closely affiliated with Matt Walsh, and it's him that's pulling the strings. So you know it's going to end up being a like, oh, the trans people are trying to get our kids sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
It just makes him look really shitty, to be honest.
Well, I mean, he is. So it's on brand.
It's Matt Walsh.
So anyway, that's been fun. That's all the tweets we've had. I think, did we get another super chat that I need to read? I think we did. Yeah, no, that's what got us onto the Matt Walsh subject, the Gender Unity Project. That's right. All right, so thanks for joining me.
Are you talking to me or the audience?
Everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that I was able to be on tonight. I mean, I always love coming on here talking about dumbass tweets with you.
Yeah, it's a hoot. I definitely like it better with a guest. It works better when I'm not getting distracted by the chat every 2 seconds. Sorry, chat. I kind of ignore you guys now. Still love you though.
See, on my stream on Friday nights, I just talk to myself a lot. So I present my multiple personalities and very explicitly.
Yeah.
Plus, I have KC here to keep me straight. Yeah.
She's like your Stephen Colbert show. He's got his musician off. Is it John? Is that his?
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're
John
talking
Batiste.
about.
John Batiste, I think. Yeah, so he's got him heckling him occasionally. I don't know. I haven't watched Colbert in a long time. I watched his Trump coverage, but now that Trump's not president anymore, I stopped watching.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I just don't have to worry about that fucker anymore. You know?
Till 2020. Well, did you hear? Apparently from the conservative, from the Republicans, it's now Marjorie Taylor Greene. Her endorsement is more sought after than Donald Trump's.
Yay, Mommy!
Because she's still more in the public eye. She can get the public's attention. Like, because she's not banned from Twitter, she can still get the whole pile-on of tweets and stuff. So it's... And
yeah, I really hope that somebody gets her out of office. This is like next cycle.
Y'all need to get rid of that two-party system, man. Because, like, Canada, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, our nut jobs vote for the PPC, which is our right-wing extreme Trumpy kind of party. So that's like all the truckers you've been hearing about recently. Those people, probably most of them voted PPC. Do you know how many seats of government the PPC won? How many seats in Canadian Congress? Zero. They won zero. Not a single one. Because they're spread so thin. Because, like, if we only had two parties, then it would just be a choice between the Conservatives and the Liberals. So the PPC wing, like, they're great at making a lot of noise. That's why this trucker convoy is all over the news. And, like, we got Tucker Carlson talking about it and shit like that. Like, so they're great at making noise. They make so much noise, the Conservatives think they have to play to that base in order to get elected, so they do, so then you end up with the shit show that you guys got in the States. But because we have the multi-party system, they just kind of split off and do their own thing and don't win anything. And, like, it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility that they will gain power in the future, but it'll be a lot harder for them here than it was in the States.
Casey said that you also have free healthcare, so she doesn't want to hear shit from you.
Well, yeah, but we would like to keep our free and
we would like free healthcare.
We would like to keep our free healthcare. So, like, don't vote for the PPC. Yeah, well, yeah, I require insulin that costs thousands of dollars. I mean, there was a guy over in Texas who died because he was forced off of his parents' insurance, and he couldn't afford insurance, and so he ended up dying, because he couldn't afford his insulin.
So I mean, we're pretty. I mean, it's like hardcore mode down here in the United States at times.
Yeah, yeah, it makes me sad. Although it did make me to bring it back to Ayn Rand.
Yeah,
There was that scene in the third movie where she, like, after the plane crash, when she was perfectly fine, but he was carrying her around the doctor examination. Couple things is that first they've got the like their only doctor is a neurosurgeon. And so the neurosurgeon is running around doing the general practitioner stuff because their utopia has a labor shortage, I guess, because there's nobody to do the actual work because they only took the CEOs and crap. So they got a neurosurgeon examining her, and then afterwards they discuss the bill for the examination, and they talk about they have a little argument about it as if it's like their first date and they're trying to decide who's going to pay for the dates. It's like, it's medical care. Like, no, she just, like, you're a fucking doctor. You shouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'll scan you, but only if you can pay me.
yeah.
And like, yeah, we want you to be compensated for your services, but we don't want every individual person to have to do that compensation directly. It needs to be collectivized because then it evens out and makes it cheap for everybody. Like, I can see on my taxes what I pay for healthcare every year, and last year was about, I think it was about $700 for the whole year.
Oh wow.
For family of 5. I haven't done my taxes this year yet, so I don't know what it will be for 2020, 2021, because we're in 22 now. But yeah, it's ridiculously cheap compared to the States.
It sounds like it because I know for my insurance, I pay more than that, like every 2 months. So
yeah, and it sucks. You shouldn't have to. It should.
No.
Anyway, so hey, I remembered to fix my end screen this time, so I'm gonna hit the end thing, and we're gonna go now. So bye. Thanks for joining me, everybody.
Bye, heathens.